Today's session is going to be brought to you by the Association of CNPs. And so this is our professional organization of certified nonprofit professionals. And so one of the ways that our association supports the members is by hosting sessions like this on topics that are on our minds as professionals in the sector. So these events are always free. If you'd like to support the Alliance to continue these webinars, feel free to check the chat. You can make a donation. We always appreciate that. You'll see a post about that. And then I'll go ahead and introduce our speaker. And after that, we will pass it on to Dr. Theresa. So for starters, our speaker today is Dr. Theresa. We're glad to have her. We're excited to hear what sort of insight she's going to share with us about leading with intention. And so a little bit about her. She is a professor, a scholar, an author, a consultant who brings over 25 years of experience in the social sector. She is a leadership coach and consultant that specializes in integrating mindfulness practices into governance, as well as leadership and development training. And so you'll get to hear a little bit more about that as she begins to share her content today. And also, in her slide deck, you'll also see that she has linked her book. And so you'll be able to get a sneak peek on chapter 1 of the book when we send out these PowerPoint slide decks later. So you're going to get the slide decks after this time that we have here. And I'm going to go ahead and spotlight Dr. Theresa, and we will get started. Feel free to take it away, Dr. Theresa.
Thank you so much, Theresa. And I was contemplating this morning how long I've been affiliated with the Nonprofit Leadership Alliance, and it's been over 20 years. That group was such a formative, developmental support system for me as a new professor and as a seasoned nonprofit professional. And I know my students and my colleagues and the nonprofit colleagues that I had, we just found so much incredible information and solidarity. So thank you for continuing this work. I really am grateful for everything that you have been doing and everything that you are doing and everything that you will be doing. Okay, well, I'm going to start a little bit with talking about mindfulness. This is my book here, and I think there's going to be a drawing at the end for anybody who wants to fill out a survey on how we did today. So you'll have a chance to do that. And as Jaleesa said, we would be happy to give you the first chapter so you can get to know a little bit to see if the book is of interest and supporting your mindful nonprofit leadership practice. So as Jaleesa said, I have a lot of different experience. I've been on this planet for a long time. My first career was in human services, and I did that for over 15 years. So I understand how difficult the work is and how important the work is. I'm a professor, nonprofit coach, and consultant. I've done this work in mindful leadership at many universities across the nation and have supported nonprofit leadership at many universities and nonprofits as well. I have a master's of public administration, a doctorate in organizational leadership, and I am trained in mindfulness, based stress reduction, intercultural development inventory, and I am a lifelong volunteer. And of course, I'm a CNP and an NLA supporter. So that's just a little bit about me, and that's my work at Catholic Charities, supporting people who were food insecure and experiencing homelessness. And so today, I would just like you to ponder, what is mindfulness, what is leadership, and how can you actually develop a practice in mindful leadership? The first thing I want to say is I practice what I teach, and a lot of us, as we go through our crazy, chaotic days, don't even have a moment to breathe and center ourselves. So I'm just going to start with a very small practice that I hope you can adopt for your professional lives as nonprofit professionals. So I'm going to ask you to get comfortable in your chair, to put your feet on the ground and feel the earth beneath you. And I'm going to ask you to just pay attention to what's happening in your body right now. Are you focused or are you distracted? How is your jaw and neck feeling? Are you holding a lot of tension at the end of this week? Or are you feeling pretty good? And then I'm just going to say, take a deep breath. And hopefully that won't be the last one of the day, but I know in our chaotic, hectic lives that sometimes we don't even have a moment to stop and breathe. And that's it. I start off meetings with this. I start off my classes with this small exercise. And it's just a way of just refocusing into the moment and to be present. So I just want to see where we are in the room. Can you just put a couple of words in the chat about how you define mindfulness? What does that mean to you? And thank you, Jaleesa, for calling them out. What does mindfulness mean to you? It's kind of a catch-all term.
All right, they are coming in. Be here now, being present, self-awareness, balance, just to name a few.
Oh, fantastic. Terrific. And now, how would you describe some words about leadership specific to our sector? What does that mean to you?
Noticing what's happening right now, your thoughts and emotions. That may be for our last one as well. We might have a bit of a delay. Okay, multiple hats, wearing many hats, observant, always leading and managing, possibly overwhelmed.
Yes, I can definitely relate to that. Yeah, those are all great words. Well, what I want to do is give you, and I'm not going to read this very long definition. I'll just discuss the first part of it and tell you a little bit about how I define mindful nonprofit leadership. It is a phrase that can be viewed in many and defined in many different ways. But I see this as a holistic approach to guiding others, grounded in self-awareness. I'm glad somebody brought that out. Equanimity, how do you manage your emotions? Reflection, looking back, focus, deep listening, compassion, empathy, and the intentional calming of the ego. So what exactly does that mean? So I've simplified it a little bit. Mindful leaders respond, they don't react. And one of the reasons that I started getting into mindfulness as in the human service field, and I know in others from my teaching that a lot of people, they hear something and they react. And that reaction isn't always helpful to the moment. People don't stop, they don't breathe. Just sitting back, listening, and taking a moment, unless it's life and death, which I know does happen sometimes in our sector. Sometimes just taking a moment and breathing and listening and then responding is helpful. Mindful leaders develop a practice of listening deeply without judgment. I don't know about you, that last phrase, without judgment, is sometimes hard. People come to us with things that are really interesting and unique sometimes, but really focusing on the person who's in front of you or the team that is with you and listening deeply to them without that judgment. That judgment tends to make our response a little more foggy. So listen to what they say, not necessarily judge immediately. Mindful leaders are present and focused, and thank you for those who said that in the chat. That's exactly right. How many times are we thinking about what has happened, thinking about what we need to do, thinking about some of you are probably ready for lunch. Mindful leaders are present and focused at the moment. And that's a practice. That's not easy to do. With my students and with my nonprofit colleagues, I'll just say, let's just focus, for one moment. Let's put 60 minutes on the timer. It is hard for what I call the monkey mind or those sticky thoughts to leave and to actually be focused. So again, it's a practice. And then mindful leaders are role models. They authentically demonstrate the same compassion and empathy for themselves as they do for their teams. So think about the last time you actually took care of yourself, that you had compassion for a mistake that you made, that you gave yourself some grace when something happened and it didn't turn out right and you were part of that. Mindful leaders are those role models. They have compassion and empathy, not only for their teams, but also for themselves. So how does mindfulness help us be better leaders? Again, they choose to respond rather than react. They reveal the connection between mind and body. So when we just did that little exercise, did you tense up again after you took that breath, after you were focusing on your jaw and neck? How aware of you are the body and mind connection? When stress or anxiety rises, learn to notice it first and then manage it second. We're all going to have anxiety. We're all going to have stress. It's being aware of it and not reacting to it. That's the key. We're not going to, this presentation isn't about getting rid of stress. It's about managing it. That's not an easy thing to do. It also cultivates stronger listening skills because you're focused and you're present. You're listening to not only what the person is saying, you're watching their body language, you're seeing how they are engaging with their emotions. You're really there to accompany them through whatever they're sharing. And because you're doing that, it sharpens your focus. You're more aware of what exactly is happening. It expands empathy and compassion. So empathy is being able to listen and relate to what somebody is saying. And I think compassion is empathy in action. What can we do about it? Sometimes people just want to sit and talk. They don't want you to do something. But compassion is actually that act of trying to alleviate whatever they are dealing with. And then, of course, it supports self-care. And who doesn't need that in our sector? Do we get enough sleep? Do we get enough nourishment? Do we do enough to really take care of ourselves and what we need? We are very good in this field at taking care of others, but often it's at the expense of ourselves. So this is a way of also saying, I also need to take care of myself. If your cup is empty, you're not going to be able to fill anybody else's cup. And I know that you've heard that before. And if you really do this well, it strengthens our teams. Healthy leaders foster healthier teams who carry the mission forward. So it really is about being that role model. Business buys into mindfulness practices. All of these business and so many more, if you do a Google search, actually have some kind of mindful programs, spaces. They engage in things in their team meetings because they know it makes the employee healthier and more productive. So let's also take advantage of what they know and learn more about it. And there's so much written on this. Harvard Business Review talks about mindfulness, has many different studies, many different articles about mindfulness for your organization, mindfulness for you, the neuroscience behind mindfulness, how your teams can grow and support your mission with mindfulness. So many different ways that you can engage in mindfulness. And I like to use these articles at my team meetings because you can all read it and then we can talk about, well, how can we actually engage in this with our team or in our organization? It's just a healthy way of being a learning leader. And these articles are very accessible to all ages and education levels. So somebody said self-awareness. I'm so glad you said that. So I think when we talk about mindful leadership, you have to begin with self-awareness. So I'm just going to give you a little bit about where I think we are with self-awareness, and I want to see where you are. So the first thing is I want to talk about leadership traits. Leadership traits tend to be things that you're born with. You see that 2-year-old who's very persistent. You see people who just have a knowing, or the 5-year-old on the playground who's very empathetic to somebody who's just fallen down. So these tend to be things that you're born with. It's not that you can't improve it, but it's easier if you take advantage of what you've been born with. So you can see these types of things that many of us have, and I'd like to know where you guys stand. Who has told you that you have compassion? If you could just write in the chat where you think you hold leadership traits. What kinds of things are here? And if there are other things, that this is just a very short list to kind of be descriptive about leadership traits. You can certainly add your own. But where do you think you land as far as your leadership traits? If you could just put those in the chat.
There was someone who identified with what you said. They put a GIF in the chat. I know you can't see it, but listening to other folks, being understanding, being relationship oriented.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All those are really good things. This is different than leadership skills, which are things that you can learn. And I'm so delighted to say we can learn leadership. Otherwise, I would be out of a job. So what kinds of things, as you look over this pretty big list, do you think you have, or somebody's told you, this is a skill of yours?
I see approachable, empowering others, inspiring others, visioning, collaborating, strategizing, just to name a few.
Yeah, all those are really, really good adjectives and verbs. So, yeah. So, thinking about what you have, what kinds of things do you think you want to have? What do you aspire to be? So, let's put that in the chat. What kinds of things do you think that you could improve on?
All right, I'm seeing collaborating, showing empathy, conflict resolution, mindfulness, team
Perfect.
development. Mhm.
Yes. All those things are really, really important. Um, the more I teach, the more I see that people really have issues with conflict resolution. People try to avoid conflict. And I try to say conflict can actually be really helpful. You get diverse views, you get other opinions that maybe you haven't explored before. It's an opportunity to be authentic. It's an opportunity to solve a problem. I encourage people to bring up those hard questions because that's how your nonprofit gets better. If everyone's on the same page, everybody agrees, you're not probably going to have an innovative nonprofit organization. So think about how some of these things can actually help your organization move forward. Um, the other things that I really like on here that I think some people struggle with are things like motivation. Everybody is motivated by different things. Sometimes it's about position or about money. Maybe it's about helping others. And that's sometimes hard as a mindful leader because you really have to focus on the individual and understand where they're coming from in order to bring them onto the team at their very best. So all of these things are things that you can improve. I would encourage you to think about things that you would like to aspire to be. Maybe one or two off this list would be helpful. Don't try to do it all. You're not going to be good at all of them. I really try to engage in storytelling a lot. It's just not my strength, even though I've been to so many seminars. So I'm going to have my compassion with myself and say, okay, I'm going to focus on other things that come to me more naturally. So think about those things as an intention. As a mindful leader, you want to have an intention. Pick one or two of those things that you think would be helpful for you to improve as a leader. How do you know? And again, if we could just put this in the chat, how do you know what your leadership skills and traits are? We tend to say, okay, I'm good at this, or this, and maybe we know that from other people telling us, but maybe we don't, or maybe we're not accurate. I know I've had many leaders in my life who think that they're really good at communication, and I think, yeah, I know you think you are, but that's probably not what I would put in your top 5 skill sets as a leader. So, how do you know what leadership skills and what leadership traits you have? How do you know how you show up for people? And if you could just put that in the chat.
All right, they're slowly coming in. So one person said, because it excites me and comes to me naturally.
Good.
Another person mentioned accessibility, active listening. They will trickle in very soon, but those are the top few so far.
Okay. Fantastic. I would even go a little bit farther to say that we have a lot of us. We just lack self-awareness because we're actually not mining that information in a way that we can gather it, understand it, and then know where to go forward. I know that I am like that, and most of us are. So being purposeful and intentional about what we would like to grow in and what we need to grow in is an important aspect of being a mindful leader. So, what is self awareness? Self awareness is the ability to understand and reflect on one's thoughts, emotions, behaviors, and enhancing personal growth and decision making. That's a mouthful, but it really is about looking at the holistic view of you as a leader and understanding where you're at and where you want to go. So, why should we do it? Developing self awareness involves mindfulness practices, seeking feedback, which we'll talk about in a moment. Sometimes that's scary to us, and I'm going to try to put a different spin on it. Reflecting on past experiences with intention to gain deeper insights. So, a lot of times we focus on what's happened in the past as a form of worry or regurgitation against, again, those sticky thoughts that don't go away. But mindfulness is saying, okay, we're going to sit down and we're going to look at this past event and really understand what went right and what could, what were our gap areas? What could we do better? And then if you do that, what is the outcome? Increased self-awareness leads to the improved emotional intelligence, fostering better relationships, and enhancing overall well-being because you're aware and you're focused and you're practicing. So here are just 5 tips to become more self-aware. So the first thing I'm going to say is you want to assess and reflect. So self-assessment tools like Strength Finders, DISC, Myers-Briggs, there are so many out there that you can actually start gathering information from yourself about where you, are illuminated and things that maybe you can do better. When you're going through any type of self-assessment, and by the way, I have some free assessment tools over here, and you'll get these links when you get the PowerPoint. You really want to be truthful with yourself. Don't put something down that you would want to be. You want to put exactly where you're at now. The other thing I would say with self-assessments is always think about examples with work. People can be very different in their family life or their personal lives than they are in their work life. So be truthful and then focus on where you want to enhance your skills. You can also seek other perspectives. If any of you have been through a 360-degree evaluation, you know how scary and painful that can be. I've gone through it with 2 different organizations, and as much anxiety that I was experiencing over it, it really was a way to see how I show up for people. And what do I need to do to be a more mindful leader? A 360-degree evaluation will ask your colleagues, your peers, people that you supervise or support, and also is a tool for your supervisor to also give input, because how you deal with those different audiences may be different. How I supervise an employee might be very different than how I show up for a peer. So you really want to seek those other perspectives. So as you look at these assessment tools, you might want to ask somebody else, if you don't have a formal system for a 360-degree evaluation, to say, hey, would you do this assessment and think of me, and see how different their assessment of you is in that moment. And if they're alike, you know that your self-assessment is pretty good. But so many of us have a different way of showing up to people than what other people experience. And it's really important to kind of do that deeper dive. Take a breath and remember, it's just feedback. It's just feedback. So many times we get evaluations and we take it to heart. And it's just a piece of feedback. It's helpful to note trends and then look at what you can do to move forward. One example of this from my own career was, and I'll talk about truth telling in a moment, is somebody told me that I was intimidating. And I'm like, what? I feel like I'm very approachable. What do you mean I'm intimidating? And if you knew me in person, I'm 6 feet tall. I'm a native New Yorker. I talk fast. I walk fast. Um, and when my truth teller told me, my truth teller, again, I'll go over in a moment, said, well, you're intimidating. I said, well, can you give me an example? And those were the examples. So I made this narrative up that I was intimidating in very bad ways. And it was just things that I couldn't control, I thought. And what I ended up doing was when I met with people, I would sit them down so I wasn't towering over with them. I was very purposeful about slowing down, being present, looking at them, hearing them, walking slower through the hallways of my nonprofit, et cetera. So getting that feedback is really, really important for your own growth and development. So as I said, I found a truth teller. A truth teller shares their reaction of your leadership behavior. So it should be somebody who can actually see you in action. It has to be somebody who's part of your organization. It is somebody who understands the context. You might be able to talk to your significant other or friends, but if they don't really understand the field, they don't really understand the pressures and stresses. And we tend not to be reliable self-reporters. So we really want to make sure we have somebody who understands the context. And then that truth teller is someone who is compassionate, who cares about your leadership growth, and can give you that honest assessment. So just to reiterate, this is not somebody like your mom. Your mom, if it was my mom, she'd be overly critical. If it's your mom, it would probably be overly generous. So you don't want it to be somebody who, again, doesn't understand that context. You need somebody who can really help you through the conversation about what the experience was as they were watching you. It's not someone who holds power over you or under you. So don't ask your staff. They're not going to necessarily feel psychological safety around that. And your supervisor may have, hopefully not, but may have other motives for describing what they think is happening. They'll give you an evaluation anyhow. So ask somebody who cares about your leadership growth, who can see you in action, and who can talk you through it. And a truth teller is not a mentor. And let me tell you a little bit about mentors. So a mentor is an individual with expertise who can help you develop your career, who can guide you through your profession. Ideally, they're not part of your immediate professional circle. They might be in another department or another organization, but they can actually provide you advice to enhance your professional performance and development. Roxanne Spillett, who was a great leader of Boys and Girls Club of America, used to say, get two mentors. Find somebody who's like you, and then find somebody who's very different. So if you are if you identify as a female, find a male as somebody who can give you a different perspective. So find people who are younger, older, maybe a different race or ethnicity to give you a very different perspective. And I always thought she gave that as really good advice. We don't want to have somebody who's just like us because they might not see our gap areas. And how do they help? They listen. They can help you build collective goals that are smart, specific, measurable, articulate, realistic, and timely, so they can hold you accountable. It's just another form of professional development. And when you are having a hard time, they can offer support to get you through that moment. So I would say try to get at least one mentor or two if you can. Another way to be self-aware is to be curious and courageous. So being self-aware and gathering that feedback is not easy. Nobody wants to hear what their gap areas are. We all like to think, well, we're the best leader, and we might be a great leader, but there's always room for improvement. Ray Kroc, husband of the philanthropist Joan Kroc, used to say, if you're not growing, you are rotting. And we have a lot of leaders that get to a certain thing and they're not curious anymore. They think they have all the answers. They don't want to go out there on a limb. So I'm going to say mindful leaders are curious and courageous. Learning about your positive leadership traits and skills is kind of fun. Like, what do people see in me? And then you always want to have a plan about how you can improve. But observe that anxiousness and stress that you might be getting from hearing some things that you might not want to hear, and take it as, okay, this is my next step in learning to be a great leader. And then I'll say practice mindfulness. And I love C-Mind is what they call it, the Center for Contemplative Mind and Society, where they talk a little bit about the awareness branches of a contemplative practice, and then communication and connection. And you'll see that work in volunteering in nonprofits is on there, because this is such incredible work that's really advancing the common good. You see that deep listening is on there. You see that people can visualize, quiet the mind, centering. So maybe pick one or two of these things to practice as you intend to become a mindful leader. So what are other kinds of mindful activities that I can offer you today? Number one is breathing, and this is from a good friend of mine, Julie Bryant, who is a higher education consultant, and she does a lot of work in this space. So again, focus on your breathing right now. Are you shallow? Take a deep breath. How many times do you think about just giving yourself a little bit of oxygen? We take a lot of breaths a day, over 17,000. Be aware of when you're tense, and if your breathing goes shallow, you're not getting that oxygen that you need in that stressful moment. And of course, we're all breathing all the time, but it's a way of actually focusing on the moment, giving yourself a little bit of grace, taking the time and breathing in to really help yourself. We know that when we breathe deeper, we actually have some physical benefits. We can lower our blood pressure, reduce our heart rate, exercise the lungs. We get a little bit of mental energy, improve immunity, decrease stress hormones. And she says if you could just take 90 seconds, a minute and a half, especially during a stressful moment, and do that deep breathing exercise, you'll feel so much better. Sometimes we need a little bit of a reminder. So walking through a doorway, taking a deep breath. When you get into your car, take a deep breath. Your phone dings with a text, take a deep breath. You're going into a meeting, take a deep breath. So all these things teach you to pause and respond rather than react. So this is something that anybody can do. It's perfectly free. Just being intentional about paying attention to your breath is one way to be mindful. Number two, setting boundaries. I know when I was working in human services, I always had my phone on, my computer was on, email was accessible 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And sometimes you need to do that. If you're on call, there may be times that you can do that. But it is okay, and I'm going to stress this because we have a lot of people who think that it's not. It is okay not to be on call 24/7 and to actually set up some boundaries. Again, we're going back to being a role model. If you don't take lunch breaks, if you don't take your vacation time, if you don't call out when you're sick, you're giving your team undue stress because they think they need to be there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So make sure that you're giving them the right message, that if it's a stressful time, tell them to take a breath, tell them to take a moment. If they're sick, tell them to stay at home. I know that has other complications and that you have to have systems and structures set up so that people can do that. But once you're aware of it, you can start building that team and developing how can we step up for other people who may need to take a break. I'll also say that it's okay to shut your door so you can focus on intense work projects. Many of us in the nonprofit field think we need to be available if we're at work. We want that open door policy. Once you start saying, I have a grant that I need to work on that will make our lives so much better if we can get it, but I need 2 hours of time to actually focus on it. Can you as my team offer that to me? If I have my door shut, can you just give me that time so that I can actually focus and be present on the task at hand? Again, it gives them permission to do that as well. I'm not saying have your door shut 8 hours a day when you're at work, But when you have heavy projects, make sure you're telling people why you're not available, and so they can understand and also have permission to do that. And I'll also say engage in activities that give you joy. Schedule it on your calendar, whether it's walking or gardening. For those of you up north that might be making a snowman as winter comes upon us, walking out in the autumn air. But actually schedule it on your calendar. We all think that we're going to, be able to have more things to do than we actually do. Work, enters into our life pretty consistently in a nonprofit organization. So actually schedule it on your calendar, schedule that lunch break, schedule that walk, schedule that breathing. And I love the quote by Anne Lamott here, who's a writer, and she says, almost everything will work again if you unplug it for a few minutes, even you. So the third thing is to practice gratitude. And it's hard to hold worry and appreciation at the same time. You can't be grateful and also be worried about something. So actually being present enough to think about, what do I need to do to be in gratitude? Practicing gratitude regularly enhances emotional resilience. It reduces stress. It encourages noticing small daily kindnesses and joy. Once you start focusing on it, you see more of it. And expressing gratitude strengthens relationship by fostering appreciation and connection. People like it when they know that you're paying attention and that you're grateful for something. You feel good about doing it, so it benefits both parties. And then again, compassion, which I see as empathy and action. Model self-compassion by admitting when you make mistakes and showing yourself kindness and grace. I'm sad to say that we're all probably going to make mistakes this week, this month, this year, and for the rest of our lives. It's part of the human experience. Don't beat yourself up. Learn from it, move forward, be intentional about it. Recognize and respond to the struggle on your team. Notice when someone else seems overwhelmed or withdrawn. Hold and check in with genuine concern. It can't be inauthentic. People see right through that. How are you doing really? And then demonstrate that people matter, that they matter. And then when leaders demonstrate that it's okay to be imperfect, it encourages a culture of growth over fear. So many of us are part of toxic organizations that it's not okay to make a mistake. And I don't understand how that is going to help with innovation, help with psychological safety, help with team development. So be a leader in this, be a role model. It's okay to be imperfect. It happens to all of us, and have compassion when it happens. And then number 5 is to be a learning leader. Practice self-reflection to examine your assumptions and biases. We all have them. Set aside time to think deeply about what's working and what isn't. I call this a leadership autopsy after something has happened, whether it's a big event or something has happened in the nonprofit organization. Knowing what went wrong and what went right is a helpful exercise for the team to go through. Create space for active listening with your team and colleagues. Be fully present in conversations. Again, suspending that judgment. It's so hard, but really listening without your own mind getting in the way of what you're listening to. And generally seeking to understand different perspectives before responding. Again, you're not reacting, you're responding. And then continue to learn, whether it's getting one of those Harvard Business Review articles, whether it's another article on the internet. Stay curious, ask questions, be transparent about your learning journey. When you show vulnerability and growth, it gives others permission to do the same. I love having book clubs. I recommend a book to my class when it's Hispanic Heritage Month or Indigenous Peoples Day, just so we can learn more about other cultures and get to know the other. And then having mindful moments at the start of every meeting or after a hard conversation. Let's all take a deep breath and just getting, again, that oxygen to our brains and taking a pause. So these are all the different things that we discussed today about being a mindful leader. And I hope that you can take a look at one or two and try to practice them as you move forward after our conversation today. So I talked a lot. What do you want to start with? I asked you to look at the skills and traits. I've mentioned some other things. What are some things that you can do to be an intentional, mindful leader? Just go ahead and put that in the chat right now.
All right, they're slowly coming in. We have active listening, check in daily with my team, shut down distractions, set boundaries, breathing.
Perfect. All good things. Even if you can shut off your phone for 15 minutes where it's not distracting is one step towards a mindful leader. Here are a few resources. You can actually go to Mindful Box and print this out. These are just simple things that you can do. I also have a couple of things on the right that if you want to look it up. With AI, it can be a great thought partner looking at what you like to do and building in mindful moments and mindful leadership. So give yourself a plan, put in to Gemini or Claude or Perplexity or ChatGPT, things that you can do based on your interest, time, and field. And just a couple of last thoughts. Leadership is a practice. Mindfulness is a practice. The more you practice, the stronger you can become. I can teach you all day long. You could go to 100 webinars, but you're not going to learn how to be a mindful leader until you take that first step. I say it's like swimming. I can teach you from my experience. I can tell you all about how to swim. I can share a book about how to swim, but you're not going to know how to do it until you actually get in the pool. So I hope you move forward with this and just try a couple of things over the month and see what you like, whether it's gratitude, it's Thanksgiving in the US, maybe a way to practice gratitude, that deep listening, that focus, shutting off your phone, giving yourself boundaries. Those are just a few things you can start with that are accessible, easy, and inexpensive. And I want to share my gratitude for your time and attention today. I love talking about this stuff. You can follow me on Facebook or LinkedIn to learn more. Again, you'll get a chapter of the book with your being here today. So I hope you take a look at that. And you have my email there if you want to interact with me about it. And so I would love to hear your thoughts, collective wisdom, any questions that you have about mindful leadership.
Thank
And I'm
you
going to
so much.
stop sharing so I can see the screen again.
All right. Thank you so much, Therese. That was so great. Our chat is very appreciative of everything that you shared. We do have one question to get us started. So, do you have any strategies for mindfulness for someone who is a brand new mentor?
Yeah. So I would say with all the things that I've shared, pick something easy and accessible. Whether it's every time I walk through a doorway, I'm going to take a breath. Or if you are a mentor, asking your mentee, what kinds of things do you want to do to be mindful, and really checking in with them, starting off small. This is not, if you want a steak dinner tonight, you don't need to order the whole cow, right? You just want to have one bite at a time. So pick something that makes sense to you. If you're a mentor, find out what your mentee is interested in learning, and start from there.
Got it. Thank you. That is a very good reminder. Start small. Start very small. Okay. So in the chat, I'll just read some of the appreciation thank yous. So thank you. This was very refreshing. They're grateful that you reminded them to be in the moment. They're grateful that this was informative. And sometimes it's very easy to forget and take care of yourself when you're a leader. So there's a lot of appreciation for the reminders, the slowdowns, and everything. So thank you.
Yeah, and in the nonprofit world, we actually get pressure not to take care of ourselves. So you're going to have to create space. No one's going to set it up for you. So being able to give yourself permission to do that and be transparent about that will also help your team.
Yes. We do have two more that came in through the chat. So one of them is, what is your favorite book about mindfulness apart from your own? Do you have any suggestions for someone to get started?
Yeah. Oh, there are so many books out there. If you want a real heavy read, but really interesting read, Jon Kabat-Zinn's book, and I'm forgetting the name of it. right now, but he has an excellent book on mindfulness, and he actually does started mindfulness based stress reduction in hospitals. He realized that this was a way of being healthy and actually part of the healing process. And he was doing this back in the 60s. So that would be a great book club read, but it's a long read. But he gets into the neuroscience behind it, the medicine behind it, and how it really helps people adjust to those stressful things that are happening.
All right, audience members, I hope you caught that. All right. So our next question is more of kind of wanting to see where your thoughts are in this and how they can apply. So this person really wants to hear more about reacting versus responding because they've encountered leaders who interrupt or interpret mindful leadership as never showing negative emotions. So
Yep.
how can they navigate that?
Yeah, it's so hard when you have a leader who, again, is not very self-aware. So, again, being a role model, you don't have to be over a person in the hierarchy to be a role model. So, if somebody is constantly interrupting you, just be silent and say, "May I continue?" And making sure that you're not interrupting them in that. A lot of people, especially. I see this on a lot of young people. They think that they have to either know the answer, they can't show emotion, and again, giving them permission to showcase that. You can't learn for somebody else. I mean, that's the hard thing. If somebody doesn't want to learn about being a mindful leader, it is really difficult. So all you can do is kind of accompany them when they do something well, and they kind of show that vulnerable side, saying, I really appreciate that. That really shows me that you're human and you don't know what that just did for me. So trying to support when they are doing something well that you appreciate, but then just, again, trying to be with them without that judgment. So difficult. It's so difficult. But everybody is on a different path, and we're going to run across many different people. All we can do is learn it for ourselves. You can't control everybody, and that's part of mindfulness is knowing when to give it up. I've had a lot of leaders that I've lost a lot of sleep over the years. And did it help me at all? No, it actually hurt me. So being able to kind of step back, not react to their poor behavior, and becoming a stronger leader is really what it's all about when you're mindful.
Thank you for sharing that. And then I think this might be our last question. Do you have any advice for finding a truth teller or mentor for a small nonprofit? This person is a full-time employee, but there's also two part-timers. So they're just kind of wondering, where do I start? How do I find?
Yeah, yeah. So if you go to any type of nonprofit collaboration groups, you might be able to find somebody who can see you in action. Sometimes, like the United Way or foundations, will have regular group meetings where you can actually find other people who can tell you what they think. Finding a mentor, you're going to have to be a little more calculated about, because that's going to be more of a relationship. It's not just about, hey, tell me this, tell me that. You want to have a regular time with them, a regular meeting with them. And where I go with that is, who is somebody in the community that I respect, that I wouldn't mind buying a cup of coffee for, spending a half hour with, and saying, I'd like to meet with you on a regular basis. You want to ask their permission. So trying to find somebody who is in your community. It doesn't have to be your physical community. You might find somebody online. You have a whole network of people here, right? So who do you know in this network who might be willing to say, I want to take a 6-month commitment with you, and learn from you? So it doesn't necessarily need to be local. All of this, COVID taught us a lot about online learning and online connections and relationships. So maybe taking advantage of that. But start by being intentional. Ask around. Who do you know who knows you, or who is willing to get to know you, so that they can actually help you in your professional development?
Good as well. And if you are a CNP or ACNP, whether you've earned it or you're learning right now, you also have the opportunity to tap into mentor-mentee opportunities. So just putting that in there. All right. So it does not look like we have any more questions at this time. So I will get ready to close us out. But if you have one more question, feel free to sneak it in before I get done. We might be able to answer it. Um, all right. So it's about that time for us to end the session. And Therese, we are so grateful for you sharing your insights and taking the time. And everyone, we will be sure to send out the slide deck and the recording once it's processed so you can tap into and access all the resources that she mentioned. So feel free to keep checking your email. It'll be coming out soon. And as a reminder, the Association of CNPs hosts events like this throughout the year. So stay connected with us to see what upcoming events we have. That link will be dropped in the chat. And then we also dropped in a survey in the chat. So we would love to hear your feedback from today's session. So feel free to complete that and you could enter for a chance to win Theresa's book. So get that filled out. And then a final thing, you can certainly donate to help us keep events like these free. We'll also have a link in the chat for that if you're interested. Otherwise, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. And we hope you have an amazing Friday Eve and rest of your weekend. Bye.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate the opportunity.